Hi, this is the James. OJ Simpson was acquitted of murdering 2 people in 1995. I am one of the very few people who watched virtually the whole trial, and while every detail may not have been memorized, I sure got the gist of it and remember the important things from it. There were so many things wrong with the prosecution's case, it was simply laughable. Please bear with me while I point a few of them out here, in random order. In a nutshell, a police videographer filmed the crime scene and OJ's home. It showed no socks on the floor in his bedroom. The police photographer who went in later photographed bloody socks on his bedroom floor, proving they were planted. The bloody socks had blood on both sides, which would be virtually impossible if they were being worn while the blood got on them, but easily explainable if the blood was dropped onto them while they were off of a person and the blood soaked through to the other side. The gloves did not fit. How did he wear them while committing a crime if they would not even go onto his hands? The gloves had his blood and both victims' blood on them, suspiciously convenient. There was one glove at the crime scene and another at OJ's house. Too convenient and so ridiculous. If you killed 2 people, would you leave a glove you were wearing at the crime scene and another at your house? The glove on his property was in an alley of sorts behind his guest house. Why would he leave it there instead of burning it or dropping it in the LA River or the street sewer or the garbage disposal, the trash, a car wash trash can, or whatever? Whoever left it in that alleyway pounded on the wall of the guest house 3 times. Is that hiding it or getting attention so someone will find it? The glove was found by search without a warrant via a cop climbing the property gate. The cop who found the glove by climbing the gate was alleged to be a card-carrying member of the American Nazi Party. He also did apply for disability once because he claimed he could not stand to work with the non-white public. Further, he bragged on tape to seriously abusing and mutilating citizens while on duty, and used the N-word numerous times. He's now a well-known crime writer. The blood samples taken from the scene were left in an unrefrigerated van for several hours in the California summer heat. Their viability as valid biological samples were destroyed or at least seriously compromised. There was a bloody fingerprint found on the gate near the Rockingham place, and its analysis has never been revealed. The blood traces in the Bronco were not found until it had sat in a public impound lot for a couple weeks, which was completely unsecured. Several reporters had gotten into it by then, and unknown others could have as well. The cut on OJ's finger was made in a motel room in Chicago, and 2 witnesses seen it happen, including a hotel employee. If the blood in his vehicle was his, it was from this. The cops took 2 vials of his blood after he was arrested. One disappeared, and this one vial was unaccounted for later. The samples from the blood trail at Rockingham, the gloves, and the socks all were taken after this. The samples that were collected from the field were reanalyzed by the FBI at the defense's behest, and were found by the feds to contain a chemical found mainly in labs. Mainly means it is in the human body, but these levels were 100 times more than that. A lab had to have tested the blood before it was collected. Even though the blood was established as having been planted, the prosecution bored the jury out of their minds with a course in DNA science. They asserted that only 1 in a billion people could have the DNA signatures that were found, and they matched OJ. But they did not mention that there are 6 billion people on the earth, so 1 in a billion means that 6 people could have the same analysis results as they found. So someone that looked just like OJ was allegedly at the scene, a tall black man in LA. What are the odds? There were footprints of at least 2 attackers at the crime scene. It would be almost impossible to subdue 2 people at once without one getting away by one person. And Goldman had a black belt in Taekwondo, remember? There were also 3 ear witnesses that heard multiple footsteps running from the scene, as well as at least 1 eyewitness. Technicalities kept their stories out of the trial. The murders were committed by 2 different knives. Would anyone actually attack someone with a knife in each hand? Possible, but so unusual it is highly unlikely. Brown's best friend was Faye Resnick, a heroin addict and low-level drug dealer. How does this factor in? It was never looked into by the prosecution. The prosecution's timeline was nonsensical and disproven at trial. Their timeline claimed that all of the following happened within a couple minutes. OJ gets home, changes, showers, hides his bloody clothes so good that no one ever finds them, puts the glove behind the guest house, pounds on the guest house wall, hides the knife or knives so good that no one ever finds them, packs a suitcase, and goes out to an awaiting limo. The limo driver testified that he was not out of breath or abnormal in any way. They even go to McDonald's before heading to the airport. Now, at the civil trial, a few more weird things happened. Double jeopardy was bypassed with civil charges, although he was already acquitted of wrongdoing in the criminal trial. All evidence at the civil trial was circumstantial at best. At the last minute, the National Enquirer waltzed in with alleged pictures of OJ wearing shoes he claimed he did not own. The jury used this to convict him. The Bruno Magli brand expensive rare Italian shoes were being worn by him in the picture. The National Enquirer is a tabloid that defames celebrities and has been sued numerous times for libel and photo doctoring. During the criminal trial, the defense had the FBI search the records of the Bruno Magli company. All pairs of shoes that were OJ's size were tracked down and accounted for. His statement, "I wouldn't own a pair of those ugly-ass shoes," turned out to be true. The jury was heavily biased by the media witch hunt of the criminal trial. And the law of California allows a maximum fine for civil violations of 50% of a person's net worth. The judge sentenced him to 200% of his net worth in blatant violation of law. Despite his friend's public complaints, this was upheld. After the Goldman family took his personal belongings and had his home bulldozed, the Brown family then tried to take his children by emergency writs. The judges finally said they were tired of it all, and so he got to keep his kids. Luckily, he already had offshore trust funds for them that no one could take. This is the money he raised his kids on after the trials. Later on, his few remaining personal belongings were stolen from him when he was staying at a hotel in Las Vegas. They included his Heisman trophies. He and a couple of his friends found out who took them and demanded their return. Later, the thieves actually complained to the cops that they did break into OJ's room and steal stuff, but they were upset that his friends had flashed holstered guns when they asked for it back. This led to felony charges against OJ. He actually went to prison for this for 9 years. Talk about a witch hunt. The most shocking thing to me about it all was when the verdict was read. I knew he would have to be found not guilty, but what really got me was the way the media showed the reactions of the public. Groups of black people were all elated, and to my amazement, groups of white people were all shocked and acted horrified. I had no idea that it was such a racial issue and that so many white people could be so biased just because of race. Obviously, race was the only factor to them. Opinion and viewpoints are not the issue here. How could it be that only the white masses ignored all of the items I listed above? I am not into the woke crap at all, but this showed a lot of racial bias, to be sure. Now, after all this time, you would think that someone would have figured out who really did it, right? Well, they did. Right around that same time period, there was a serial killer who murdered 70 women. He knew OJ and Nicole both. He was in LA at that time and later admitted to having killed both Nicole and Ron. There is a documentary about it that is very detailed and has all the inside info from all involved. It was on Amazon, now only on Vimeo for a fee, or it can be ordered on his site. It is also in book form on Amazon. Look up Who Killed Nicole by Norman Pardo. There's also a separate documentary about this serial killer named Glen Rogers. It tells how all of his closest family members always knew he committed these murders. Besides, he openly admits it. Oh, and by the way, Rogers owned Bruno Magli shoes at the time. The evidence is overwhelming, and interviews with Norman Pardo are so full of info it blows the mind. One more thing worth mentioning briefly is the book called If I Did It, detailing how OJ carried out the murders. The book is thought to be written by OJ himself, but it was not. He was paid $600,000 to allow his name to be put on this book, and yes, there is proof of this. OJ was broke from lawyer fees at the time and was stupid to make this deal, but it happened. To top off all of this, even if all of this is somehow wrong and completely off track, there is an alternative theory that in itself is more believable than the prevailing idea that OJ did this. It is the idea that OJ's son did it, and it is also very plausible. So watch that documentary made by the BBC called OJ Simpson, The Untold Story. All of these documentaries are on YouTube for free, except Pardo's for now, though his book is only $11 on Kindle. Once again, I have served up some food for thought, so have a disturbed day.